today.
Prosecutors say a former kindergarten teacher ordered her students to hit 7-year-old Aiden Neely.
She's known as the bully teacher.
Line up and hit him. Make sure you hit him hard.
That's not what happened.
Plus, is she secretly the mother of this child? That's what her ex's mom thinks.
I terminated the pregnancy.
She says you gave birth. We did the DNA test. Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
I hate to see people suffering, and you've hurt long enough.
Stand by, Dr. Phil.
I'm going to get you the help that you need.
In 5, 4,
This is going to be a changing day in your life.
Go, Dr. Phil.
Thank you very much. All right, today we are dealing with two stories that involve bullying. You all know I am very passionate about this. One of them is so bad we had to get a DNA test to stop the potential bully. So why am I holding this now? Because it involves chain of custody. And this was delivered to me and has not been out of my hands. It is unopened, but it will be open during the show. Now, when you send your children to school, you expect them to be educated, cared for, and safe. And that's the first story we're going to talk about before we get to this one. You put their lives and their future into the hands of one person 5 days a week, hours at a time. I'm obviously talking about their teacher. But what if that teacher is accused of being a bully? In June of this year, 44-year-old former kindergarten teacher Cynthia Ambrose was convicted of official oppression for directing her kindergarten students to hit a fellow student. Now, Cynthia was sentenced to 2 years of probation, 30 days of jail time. Cynthia says, look, this whole thing was a big misunderstanding, but now she is labeled a child abuser and is known as the bully teacher. Take a look.
7-year-old Aiden Neely takes the stand in the trial of Cynthia Ambrose. Prosecutors say Ambrose, a former kindergarten teacher, ordered her students to hit Neely.
Do you remember other kids getting up and slapping you in the back?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember how many kids did it?
I think like 21.
I don't understand why I am in the situation I'm in. 21 kids did not hit him. Only one student hit him.
Neely's former teacher, Barbara Ramirez, says she took Neely to Ambrose because she had a reputation of being strict.
I used to have a good reputation as a teacher. Parents wanted their kids in my classroom. It's not that I was tough, I'm just loud.
Did Miss Ambrose say anything when she saw the students hitting Aiden?
That's when she's like, Mom, let's hit him harder.
The teacher alleged that I had said hit him harder, but I never said any of those things.
This is absolutely the parents' worst nightmare.
Judge Sid Harrell sentenced Ambrose to 2 years probation. As a condition, she'll have to serve 30 days in jail and won't be allowed to teach.
It is my worst nightmare. Being called a monster, an enforcer, a bully teacher. It hurts me. Now nobody will hire me. They're afraid of being associated with me. I'm very depressed because I can't work. But I really am not a bad person, but I'm broken. I want Dr. Phil to know that I really am not the person that they're portraying me out to be.
All right, Cynthia, I'm glad you're here. We expect teachers to protect our children, not victimize our children. So why are you in so much trouble? What happened here?
I cannot explain why the teacher made the allegation she did.
This is the teacher that brought a student to your classroom, right?
Yes, she did bring him to me, but I was in the middle of the lesson when she was visibly upset. So I was like, well, what do you want me to do? You know, take him to the office? And she said, no, they won't do anything, which I didn't disagree because it's true. We didn't have the support. And I did say, you know, when I turned to my class, even though my class had already heard everything had done because they were on carpet. My carpet was right by the door. They heard it. I turned around and I told them what he had done. And you got to understand my thought process. Prior to this, I had a student who stole from us. She was always going into my purse. She was stealing from the backpacks. So one day I told my students, do y'all want to go into her backpack and get her stuff? And her eyes, you know, just the thought that, oh my God, now they're going to take my things. So and everybody said yes. And so I said, do you want us to take your stuff? She said, no. I said, well, then don't steal from us. They were supposed to, like, I wanted her to be in their shoes and what it felt like someone taking your stuff. So when I turned to my class and I was telling them what the boy had done based on what teacher had just said, I said, well, what kind of consequence should he get? And mind you, we had already been doing 3 weeks of elections and voting and, you know, different things. So I did say, you know, I told them what kind of consequence should he get, and they all were throwing out, you know, different, you know, like timeout, no recess. And one, I remember he said he should get hit by the kids he hit. So in my mind, I immediately think of the backpack incident, and I turn around and I do, and I don't deny that I said, does anybody want to show what it feels like? But I was expecting the class to just say yes, and I would turn to him and say, would you want your friends to hit you? You know, I was wanting him to be in their shoes, but I didn't get that far because the next thing I know, I heard the hit. It was very distinctive. You could tell she had hit him in the back because it was a distinct sound. And when I turned, you know, if one student gets up, a few will get up, and some had gotten up, and, you know, I turned right away, get away from him. And that was it. I just remember freaking out. The teacher, you know, I looked at her, and she went back to the class and left him there. So I checked on him to make sure he was okay. He wasn't crying.
Okay, I get it. Let me interrupt you here for a minute, because I got to tell you, I got a problem with some of what you just said. Just to be honest with you, first off, why would you humiliate this boy in front of the class by, A, allowing them to overhear a teacher-to-teacher communication criticizing his behavior, and then why would you turn around and tell the class everything he just did wrong?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I can't explain it. Like, for one, when she came in, I didn't know what she was going to tell me.
But then you said you turned around and told the class what they already knew.
Yeah.
So twice you hold this boy up to ridicule in front of a group of children? Well, here's what she said. We heard what you said. Here's what she said in this notarized affidavit. I witnessed Cynthia Ambrose tell several students to hit one of my students. I took the child to her classroom for a timeout. She asked the child, would you like someone to bully you? She then said, come on, class, let's bully him. Line up and hit him. Make sure you hit him hard. Students were hitting him on the back and in his head. When one student hit him really hard, she said, okay, that was too hard. I walked out of the room in complete shock. I removed the child from her room, being after 5 minutes. But you're saying that didn't happen.
That's not what happened in the classroom.
But what did happen is you had him in front of your 24 students, as you say, and told them he's been hitting and kicking and bullying. Do you want to hit and kick and bully him? And they said yes and jumped up and commenced doing it. She says 21 students. The record says 21 students hit this child.
I know from seeing her statements, the teacher alleges 5 to 7. The one saying 21 is the parent.
Right. So you said one got to him so quick you couldn't stop it, but now you just said that 5 to 7 is what the teacher said.
Well, that's what the teacher said.
How many hit the child?
One.
One child. You said when one gets up, several get up.
Yep, but when I turned around, you know, I mean, it's hard to explain because it sounds like it took forever. It was seconds. And, you know, I turn around, you know, when I heard it and, you know, kids are standing up and I'm like, get away from him because like, we're walking towards him. But I only heard one hit him. I didn't see her hit him, but I heard it. Did not order a hit.
Why would this child lie?
I cannot honestly comment on that since that is part of the appeals process.
But you do maintain that the child lied.
I don't want to call anybody a liar. All I can tell you is that what I'm telling you now is what really happened.
Okay, all right.
But I don't want to label anybody.
Yeah. What a parent whose child was in the classroom that day has to say. We'll be right back. I don't know a lot of kindergarten teachers, but among the few kindergarten teachers I know, you're the only one that has had 2 court proceedings against them.
Tomorrow on an all-new Dr. Phil. She was in the wrong place
I woke up feeling the barrel of the gun.
at the wrong time.
They were targeting your roommate.
I thought they were going to burn us alive.
Plus, near Castro's House of Horrors, his girlfriend went missing.
Jose was the prime suspect for 18 years.
Has this cold case
Someone has confessed.
been solved?
You two still believe that Jose is involved in some way?
That's tomorrow.
Do you remember other kids getting up and slapping you in the back?
Yes.
Okay. Did you start to cry because all these people were hitting you?
We're talking with Cynthia Ambrose, a former kindergarten teacher accused of having her students hit a 6-year-old bully so he would know how it feels. Now, Cynthia is here today to set the record straight. She's been very forthcoming. She put no restrictions on anything that I could ask her. Her appellate attorney, Dana Jones, is here. In May of 2010, Cynthia was accused of pulling a kindergarten girl's hair. Now, the official charge was assault with contact and threats. It went to trial at the end of July in 2010, and that case was dismissed.
Yes, sir.
Okay, why did it go to trial? Why was it dismissed?
When it first happened, I found out from my son after school that the little girl had gone to the office to allege that I'd done these things. But once we got to court, and I guess she realized, because she's standing before the judge, when they asked, has Miss Ambrose ever threatened you? No. I mean, it was her reaction like, no. Has she ever, pulled your hair? And then she pulled like one strand of hair, but she has long frizzy hair. So, I mean, that thing could have got stuck anywhere in the chair because they were in the cafeteria at the time. And
But I guess my point is, I don't know a lot of kindergarten teachers, but among the few kindergarten teachers I know, you're the only one that has had 2 court proceedings against them, which, I mean, that just is what it is. One of those cases was dismissed. You have the other on appeal, and I respect that. Joining us on the phone is Maria. Her daughter was in Cynthia's class the day the incident occurred. Maria, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, you've been listening to the show so far, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I think you have very important point of view to add to this. What can you tell us about what you know about what happened in the classroom from your child?
I heard about this case through the local media, and when I asked what had happened, I asked my daughter, did you see or did you hear the teacher tell this class to go and beat up a boy? And she said no. And I said, well, did you hit the boy? She said no. And so I asked her, did you see other students go beat up this boy? And she said no.
So if this had happened in that classroom the way that it's been described by others, you would have expected your daughter to have regaled you with tales about it, correct?
Absolutely, correct.
All right, thank you so much for sharing your point of view here, and it really is helpful to hear from a mother of a student that was in the classroom. So I really appreciate it, Maria. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our Twitter's blowing up over this as it's happening right now. Cactus4RX says, cases like this make people scared to be teachers. Baldwin Randy says, the good news is bullying stops the day after graduation and life takes a big turn for the better. Certainly hope that's the case, but I'm not sure. Aunt Jeanette Fuller says the teacher was trusted to protect the children on her watch. So you've got some that kind of think one way and some think another. I think you had good intentions go bad. I think ridiculing a student or allowing a student to be ridiculed in front of others bothers me, because I think psychological wounds heal much slower than physical wounds sometimes. And, you know, I have been invited to Washington, D.C. to testify before a congressional committee about bullying and about the re-empowerment of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. And I talked about bullying and cyberbullying at the time. And I think we have to set really good examples. And one of the things I said in that testimony was that we don't need to punish bullies, we need to treat them. Because bullies come from bullying homes. Bullies come from bad role models. Bullies come from insecurity and a false sense of superiority. Punishing them just makes them more angry and they find another target. They need to be treated, not punished. And I think that you had good intentions and made what I think you would agree was a bad decision at the time. But what I hate is for anyone or any teacher to have their entire career painted by an isolated incident. And I fear that's what happens in the media storm, where in this day and time, we have a media machine that is so hungry for the 30-minute news cycle that anything and everything gets blown up into news. And I just think that's bad. So my bottom line is, I think you made a bad decision the day you talked about that child in front of your students, and I hope you don't do that anymore. I think that what happened with the student in class is very suspect about where on the continuum it was, and we need good and dedicated teachers. I suspect this has been a painful lesson to you. And I hope we see you back in the classroom, because I think your heart's in the right place. All right. From bullying in the classroom to a potential cyberbully, next we're going to talk to a woman that is utterly convinced that there's a little boy in a different state that is her grandson. Now, this woman won't stop harassing his adoptive family. And I carried out at the beginning of the show this envelope. I'm hanging on to it for a reason. I'll tell you what it all means when we come back and talk about this story.
Christine believes that I gave the baby up for adoption. My friend Terry adopted the baby. Christine's created this story in her mind, and she believes it.
Our next story centers around a mystery. Who is the mother and who is the grandmother of this 7-year-old boy? Now, the mystery has led to allegations of lying, stalking, and stealing. There are demands of blood tests, DNA tests, and fingerprints. So let me explain the players in this drama. A woman named Christine says the boy is her grandson. She says her son is the father and his ex-girlfriend, Neva, is the birth mother. All right, now Terry adopted the boy and says none of these people are related to her son. There is talk of restraining orders and harassment that has gone from coast to coast. It all started with a pair of high school sweethearts. Take a look.
I started dating Christine's son when I was a sophomore in high school. After dating for about 3 months, I found out I was pregnant. I didn't know what to do. I was lost. I was confused. Did I want the baby? Did I not want the baby? My boyfriend and I were not getting along at all. I was hysterical. I was crying all the time. I was upset, and at that point, my family and I decided that we couldn't have this baby. In about 8 weeks, I terminated the pregnancy. I had an abortion.
This was a chapter of my life I wanted to forget forever. Not a day goes by that I don't think about what I did. When I think of the baby and how the baby would have been, and if it was a boy or a girl.
I never told Christine I had an abortion. I told Christine that the baby was dead. It was gone. That was it. I lost the baby. I didn't tell anybody I had an abortion.
Well, Neva and her boyfriend broke up. Now, nearly 6 years passed, and Neva lost contact with Christine and her son. Until one day out of the blue, Neva had heard rumors that Christine was trying to contact her.
For many years, I had no contact with Christine at all. And then one day out of the blue, Christine was trying to get a hold of me. Christine did not believe that I terminated the pregnancy. I called Christine right away. She said, "Who's Judy?" And I said, "My friend." "Why?" "Who's Terry?" And I said, "My friend's sister." "And who's?" And she said, "Terry's adopted son's name." And I said, "Christine, what are you talking about? What are you implying?" Christine believes that I gave birth to the baby, and she believes that I gave the baby up for adoption, and that my friend Terry adopted the baby.
I adopted my son 6 years ago. My son's birth mother was definitely not Neva.
It is impossible that Terry adopted my baby because I had an abortion.
Christine would like to have a relationship with her grandson. The problem with that is Christine is not his biological grandmother.
Christine was all over the internet claiming that we took her grandson from her.
Christine had blog after blog. It was everywhere on the internet.
Christine would steal pictures of my son from social media sites of my family members and friends, and she would post them on these blogs that she created. Christine would say that that was proof that he was her grandson.
It's completely ridiculous, and it's all lies.
On most of her blogs, she has between 3 and 6 pictures of my adopted son. It was upsetting. I have asked Christine hundreds of times to take my son's pictures down. Christine says she has a right to have her grandson on her page. It enrages me that she could invade my family this way.
Christine created this story in her mind, and she believes it.
All right, well, I'm here with Neva and Terry, and I kind of want to fill in some of the blanks, but you made a decision at a very young age to terminate a pregnancy. You were how old?
16.
And did you two know each other at the time?
No.
And you did do an adoption. You adopted a child. God bless you for that. And this child now is the child that Christine says was the baby you conceived with her son. And you've told her that's not true.
She's told her many times.
And you've told her that's not true.
Yes.
She says that you have friends and family that work in the medical field to cover things up.
She says that we conspired with state workers, judges, and that through that my pastor hid the baby for 2 years. That just crazy assumptions.
Okay, and I wrote down some of the things she said. She said you told one story that about the birth parents, that they were drug users and the judge ruled that they were unfit, took the son and gave it to you as a foster child. That's one of the stories you've told.
That is the story.
Okay. Then the second story is the bio mom had an affair, the dad was in jail, so they gave it up for adoption. Did you ever tell that story?
No.
But she says you tell that story. And then she says that you could bring in any boy that looks like her grandson and pass him off as someone that if we try to prove up that it's not her grandson, that you could get a look-alike kid that would come in and play the role of your son and I guess call you mommy. And
my son came to me at 6 days. I have had him every day.
Right.
He's
Do you have any look-alike role-play kids? I mean, I'm just asking. I have to ask the questions.
No, I don't.
That you could take some other kid in and get him tested and prove that he wasn't her grandson.
No, his pictures were taken at the testing.
Okay.
The exact same child that everybody has the pictures of since he was 6 days old.
Right.
It's the same child.
Right.
There's no...
And she wanted all of this to come here because you would eventually crack and tell me the truth.
That's what she thinks. But you already know the truth.
It's been a year.
I'm looking at you pretty hard, sister. All right. Okay, so I've got a timeline of events that Christine says took place, and then facts that Neva says prove that to be completely untrue. How will this match up? Well, we'll take a look when we come back.
What scares me the most about Christine is that she's so irrational and so wrong and so adamant that she's right. It scares me that she'll come here and take my son. Every year we go to the Christmas parade in our town. We were there just a little while. There were quite a few of us standing around.
After being at the parade for about 20 minutes or so, my sister Terry was notified that Christine had posted on her Facebook page.
She hoped that my adopted son was having a good time at the parade, and I don't know how she could have found out he was there. I freaked out, then everyone around me freaked out. I want this to stop.
Now, Christine says that in 04, that in June, that her son met Neva. That in November, Neva gets pregnant. In December, that you said that he's not going to have the son's last name. Okay, now in May, she says that's when the grandson was born. Her grandson was born. This would be in May of 05. And says that you give birth, did not terminate, and to prove it, you were out of school until June 05, so much so that you missed your prom. And then that summer, you began working at a beauty salon. And is that where you two met? No? Okay. Now, then she begins to hear rumors that Neva has a baby that looks like her son. So she says, it's got to be my grandson, because she heard rumors he had a baby that looks like her son, and she has this timeline. Neva says that she met Christine's son and gets pregnant in November or December, but that's in 03, not 04. So she's a year off there?
She's a year off, yes.
Okay, and then you say and that the relationship ended at Christmas time of that same year, short relationship.
Yeah, it was short, yeah.
Okay, and then you say that you terminated the pregnancy in January and then were homeschooled until June. She says you were at home because you were pregnant and hiding it.
Yeah.
Okay, but we got medical records that show that on the 9th, 04, induced abortion by dilation and evacuation, and we have the medical record number.
Yes.
And we've verified that.
Yes.
Okay, and then from the 14th to the 19th, you were in the hospital because you were very depressed and having all kinds of problems and reactions to it. So she says you gave birth, but she's off a year, and we have the medical records that the pregnancy was terminated, and then you were homeschooled.
Sure.
Okay, homeschool ends in June of 04, and you begin a one-year job at the salon, correct?
Yes, I started working at the salon.
Okay, and then in 05, she says you didn't terminate, you were pregnant, and so you missed your prom.
That's not true.
Right? Well, actually, we have your prom picture where you attended prom. Is that correct?
Yeah, she says I just gave birth like 2 days before that.
Yeah. Well, you snapped right back. Then you graduate high school.
Yes.
And then 2 years, you work and you're graduating, which is important because she says this is there were very different things going on at the time, obviously from her timeline. So isn't she way off here?
Mm-hmm. She is way off.
Okay, and then in January of 06, not January of 05, your son is born.
Yes.
And we have that document as well. Christine provided us with a piece of evidence. It's a photo that she says proved that Terry's adopted son is really her grandson. I'm going to show this just to the studio audience. I'm not going to broadcast this. She says, based on this photographic evidence, it's clear that that is her grandson. I don't know what to say about that. That seems pretty thin in the face of the evidence that we just presented with medical records of termination and birth certificate of the child that has now become your child.
Yes.
So, where is Christine and what does she have to say about all of this? I'm going to answer that when we come back.
Tomorrow on an all-new Dr. Phil. She was in the wrong place
I woke up feeling the barrel of the gun.
at the wrong time.
They were targeting your roommate.
I thought they were going to burn us alive.
Plus, near Castro's House of Horrors, his girlfriend went missing.
Jose was the prime suspect for 18 years.
Has this cold case
Someone has confessed.
been solved?
You two still believe that Jose is involved in some way?
That's tomorrow.
I feel that Christine is stalking me. What Christine has done has been a huge invasion of my privacy. Christine has posted my full name, my son's full name, our address, my birth date.
I was furious that she was posting anything.
Christine claims that she has my son's birth certificate, my son's adoption papers. It's very upsetting to know that someone has something so private and personal. We contacted Facebook and have always been told that she wasn't doing anything significant enough to take anything down. We have been to our local police 5 times, been in contact with cyber crimes through the state police, even called the FBI. We have written letters to all 114 legislators who represent our state. I personally contacted the Child Advocacy Office in our state. The only answer that they could give me was to change my name and move.
It's been a nightmare.
It seems hopeless. I want this to stop. I don't know what else that we can do.
All right, well, Terry and Judy say whether or not this boy is Christine's grandson, she is putting this little boy's safety at risk.
What scares me the most about Christine is that she's so irrational and so wrong and so adamant that she's right. It scares me that she'll come here and take my son.
She lives in fear every day that something is going to happen to her son.
I don't go places because I don't want anybody to take him. I don't go places where I think that he would be accessible to people that I don't know.
I'm really afraid that she will do something drastic and we will be forever without our little boy. And I can't imagine life without him.
I feel this to be very creepy and scary. I'm scared for Terry and her family. I'm scared for me and my family because is she ever going to stop, even when she's proven wrong? That's scary to me.
Well, Terry's sister, Judy, is in the audience. You're concerned about what could happen here.
Of course I am. He's a wonderful little boy. He's my godson. He's the world to our family. He is just a great little boy. And with his history from his birth parents, we don't want to put him at risk. They live very close to us. And if they find him, they could come find him too. So we really have 2 issues here of what we're afraid of. We're not just afraid of her. She's putting him in danger with his real biological family as well of finding him. And that's terrifying. That's terrifying.
Yeah. Now, I want to introduce a legal expert that works with the Dr. Phil show. Some of you know him. It's attorney Chris Chatham. He is here. And Chris, I guess the question is, there was a lot of talk about talking to legislators, about doing different things. But if people are getting harassed over the internet, and that's only part of this, but if people are misappropriating pictures and posting them up on the internet, sending threatening emails, harassing emails, is there anything that can be done? Because basically they're being told until something happens, we can't do anything.
a majority of states do have anti-cyberstalking laws. And those carry not only civil liability, but criminal liability. Now, one of the things that I'd be curious to know is, are you documenting all of this misappropriation?
Yes.
Okay, because that is what builds your case.
Right.
When this story came, I said, okay, we'll drill down on this and figure out what's going on. So Christine started making demands about how this had to be done. She said she wants a DNA blood test for the child in question, not a DNA swab. She wants a blood test. She wants a list of all the techs and employees at the DNA center. She wants records of all the lab techs' schooling and qualifications. She wants to perform a retest here today on the show, witnessed by me. She wants to fly Neva, Terry, and her son to the analysis expert's location for the DNA test, or have the test performed in another state. And she wants to do a home swab test and film it. So those, I'm just saying, those are her demands. Okay, so where is Christine? Well, she was on board until the day before the flight. She was on board, she's coming, we're going to get to the bottom of this. So Christine is not here. But we did do the DNA test, and I've had it with me, chain of custody. It is not opened, but we're going to see what's in it when we come back.
If I took a maternity test, it would prove that I am not Terry's son's mother. While I was having the procedure done, I was just thinking that I couldn't believe how much this escalated. A decision that I made 10 years ago is haunting me now.
I would gladly take my son for a DNA test.
If I took a maternity test, it would prove that I am not Terry's son's mother. I feel very confident. While I was having the procedure done, I was just thinking that I couldn't believe how much this escalated. A decision that I made 10 years ago is haunting me now.
He did a very good job. He was very brave. It's time for everybody to move on and just let my son live a normal life.
Well, you know, we could find out, you know, by getting DNA from her son. That's one way to do it, rather than getting it from you. And so we tried that too. The staff would call and she would say, well, I'm gonna have to call you back. I'm like really busy. And says she didn't want son's business on TV. I've not said his name. She says the son wants the test and he hasn't called because he's scared to reopen wounds. He feels defeated. She says son's at work, but he'll call back. Says he's just crazy busy. You know how it is. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. But it's time to open the package with the DNA results. But first, I want you to see the very secure route that this package traveled. This is a UPS sealed package, and it flies from DNA Analysis Center in Sharonville, Ohio to Louisville, Kentucky. Then the package changes planes and flies to Los Angeles. The package then gets put on a truck, and the truck drives to Paramount. All right. Now, the truck drives to Paramount, and it was delivered to my assistant, Barbara, my secretary, at 8:33 a.m. It was handed to me at 11 a.m. Now, it's still completely sealed, so let's take a look at the results. Here are the results, and it is from the DNA Diagnostic Center, and it is signed and sealed. There is a DNA test here of the alleged mother, you, and the child that you have adopted and are raising. And the probability that you are this child's mother is 0%. 0%. Okay, now, so we have the results from everybody that was tested in this. There is no chance whatsoever. But now, how do we know that this was actually the boy? Because it's been alleged that you could bring in a stand-in. I mean, this is Hollywood. So we have even more proof for Christine. When Terry's son went to the DNA center, they took his fingerprints. Well, we also took his fingerprints here in L.A. at a facility that works with the FBI. And you know what? It's the same kid. There's no denying it. It was Terry's son that gave us that DNA sample proving that Neva is not the boy's biological mother and is not Christine's grandson. So butt out of these people's lives. We'll be right back. My Twitter account has been blowing up from all of you watching at home. Here's one from Cobra Girl AZ tweeted, "Sometimes we want to believe something so badly that our judgment becomes cloudy." We connected with Cobra Girl AZ via Polycom. You've been watching this all along, right?
Yes, I have.
So is there any stone left unturned? Is there any question that I haven't answered just from a viewer standpoint?
Absolutely not. They need to leave these poor people alone and move on, and I feel for these people so badly.
I love plugging our viewers in live from home so you guys know how this is playing across America. May I present you with this evidence that you have it. I don't know, but I want to thank all of my guests today. I hope this makes a difference for y'all. I hope you're glad you came. I also want to thank Chris Chatham, a lawyer extraordinaire. If you want to find him, there's a link on our website to Mr. Chatham. He is an excellent lawyer and has a very active practice across the United States. If you need information about bullying or cyberbullying, log on to drphil.com. We'll see you next time. Thanks so much, John.